Hello everybody, and welcome back to something completely different. So, last time I had found my way to this jolly old Saint Nick, who is blaming the far left for the reason why the campaign lost, and in particular I've been trying to respond to this very pleasant person. And yeah, so I just wanted to share that, what I was trying to say. You know, it says show more replies, and you know, it keeps deleting my novel. So here's the novel. Thomas Winston. Laughing my ass off. Okay, but I don't think you'll like my answer. Well, liberalism takes its roots back to the late 1700s in what replaced the mercantilist policies of monarchies. They are, to some degree, the same origins of capitalism. Indeed, liberals have always favored capitalist policies, even in the British system. But we both know what we're really talking about is neoliberalism and the third way Democrats, right? I just want to make sure that we're discussing the same group of ideology rather than the entire Wikipedia page, you know? So, anyways, neoliberalism doesn't really appear all that different to me from the conservatives of the 1980s. Hence, why the Kamala campaign insisted to us that Reagan would have loved her. You know, Contra Reagan, the denied AIDS pandemic Reagan. Or why the Harris campaign thought wheeling out Dick Cheney's daughter would somehow endear her to anyone. Even the conservatives don't like the Cheneys. Maybe you heard of the father, Enron Cheney? Maybe shot his best friend on purpose, Cheney. Who were these ads to? But I digress. I know, explaining what a thing is like is not the best quality evidence for what a thing is. And you will insist, I'm sure, on solid statements and evidence before you, quote, change your mind, right, Mr. Crowder? Neoliberalism is defined in Wikipedia as both a political philosophy and a term used to signify the late 20th century political reappearance of 19th century ideas associated with free market capitalism. Bunch of footnotes. The term has multiple competing definitions and, you know, is often used pejoratively, kind of like how I did in making fun of liberals in my own comment. But how you cannot fix stupid. In scholarly use, the term is often left undefined or used to describe a multitude of phenomena. However, it is primarily employed to delineate the societal transformation resulting from, you guessed it, market-based reforms. That's Wikipedia's first page. First paragraph is what it should say. And I have to stress to you, 13 footnotes already? Impressive, says I. Are they trustworthy? Well, number 11 was by Springer, Burke, and McLevy, 2016, page 1. Neoliberalism is a slippery concept, meaning different things to different people. Scholars have examined the relationships between neoliberalism in a vast array of conceptual categories. Number 8, Bab Sarah, Kentikalinis, Alexander, 2021, Markets Everywhere, the Washington Consensus, and the Sociology of Global Institutional Change. Annual Review of Sociology, 47th edition, 47th publication, pages 521 to 541. I'm not going to read the DOI ISSN. And number 1, Vincent Andrew, 2009, Modern Political Ideologies, Hoboken, New Jersey, Wiley Blackwell. Willie Blackwell. Page 337, via Google Books. I want you to honestly answer if you bothered to read it all, and you didn't even have to read it. I'm reading it to you, Tom. Whether or not you would trust these sources before I continue quoting Wikipedia. I'm really just trying to assess how anti-intellectual you are. Anyway, quoth the Wikipedia, neoliberalism is an economic philosophy that originated among European liberal scholars during the 1930s. It emerged as a response to the perceived decline in popularity of classical liberalism, which was sort of what I was describing up here with the first quote. Classical liberalism, which was seen as giving way to a social liberal desire to control markets. This shift in thinking was shaped by the Great Depression and perceived decline in popularity of classical liberalism, which was seen as giving way to a social liberal desire to control markets. Manifested in policies designed to counter the volatility of free markets, the constant up-down, boom-bust cycle. One motivation for the development of policies designed to mitigate the volatility of capitalist free markets was a desire to avoid repeating the economic failures of the early 1930s, which have been attributed in part to the economic policy of classical liberalism. In the context of policy making, the term neoliberalism is often used to describe a paradigm shift that followed the failure of the post-war consensus and neo-Keynesian economics to address the stagflation of the 1970s. The collapse of the USSR and the end of the Cold War, big question marks around that, also facilitated the rise of neoliberalism in the United States and around the world. End quote. You'll notice a heavy focus on capitalist markets, but it's included since the Third Way Democrats in the 90s a bunch of things like being pro-war, shipping jobs overseas, pretending to protest conservative policies when they often end up voting that way in 20 years, see the ratchet effect, war hawkish things that only social democrats and other left-leaning parties have been willing to protest in earnest. Did you know that the United States has been in a quarter of all of its conflicts since 1991? Quoth the Wikipedia, the United States government has been involved in numerous interventions in foreign countries throughout its history. The U.S. has engaged in nearly 400 military interventions between 1776 and 2023. If 25% of them have happened since 1991, that's almost 100 conflicts we have gotten involved in. And I will remind you that it hasn't been a Republican in charge that entire time. Just going to let that one settle in for a moment. Anyhoodles, what's the mysterious footnote number 1 from all this? All you have to do is look. It's this. So, TLDR, that's my answer until you can give me some feedback if we're on the same mental landscape or not. I'm sure you'll cry that I've written too much or protest my use of Wikipedia. I really don't expect much from Can't Tell the Difference centrists. I'm just going to put that bias out in the open, and I don't mean any hostility about it. One of the major problems of being politically inactive for 4 years and only paying attention during the election cycle is that you miss just how many heinous things the Democrats are... My apologies. Correction. The many heinous things centrist Democrats, like Joe Manchin, are willing to support even when thrown evidence that their policies will hurt people, planet, and our children's future. Thank you. Hope you even bothered to read. If you didn't, I honestly don't give a